What if the biggest lottery you ever play isn't for cash, but for the very life you're born into? Well, in Japan, there's a new slang term that's captured this exact idea, and it's sparking a massive debate about class, luck, and what it means to get a fair shot. It's called Oyagacha, or the parent lottery. Today, we're going to dig into what this one little phrase tells us about society, not just in Japan, but maybe everywhere.
So let's break this down. Oya is pretty simple. It's the Japanese word for parent. Gacha comes from gachapon, you know those capsule toy machines you see everywhere? You drop in a coin, you turn the crank, and you get a random prize. You literally have no idea what you're going to get. So you put them together and you get Oyagacha. The idea that you don't choose your parents, your starting point in life, it's all just the luck of the draw.
Now, the author of our source material sees this term as having two totally different sides. On the one hand, they say it's a brutally accurate way to talk about real social inequality. But on the other hand, it gets written off as a childish complaint, something you'd only hear from someone who's already got it pretty good. And it's this exact tension that makes Oyagacha so fascinating. So let's explore both sides of that coin.
Okay, so first up, let's talk about why this term, even if it sounds a little immature to some, is painfully accurate for a whole lot of young people in Japan.
This is really where the idea hits hard. I mean, imagine for a second that you're a brilliant student. You've got the smarts, the grades, everything you need to get into a great university. But your family just can't afford it. All of a sudden, your own potential doesn't seem to matter nearly as much as your parents' income. It feels like your path was set in stone before you even got a chance to take the first step.
And look, this unluck isn't just some vague feeling, right? It has real-world consequences. We're talking about having to give up on your dream of going to college just so you can start working right out of high school. It's that gut punch moment when you realize that all your hard work might not be enough to beat the odds. And when that happens, yeah, life can really start to feel like a game of chance that you were born to lose.
All right, now let's flip the script. Let's look at the counter-argument and see why the author thinks these complaints come from a place of relative comfort and why they call the term childish.
So, the whole foundation for this argument is this. Japan, when you look at it globally, is an incredibly stable and safe place to live. The social safety net is really strong. I mean, compared to so many other countries, basic needs like safety, food, and a roof over your head are pretty much guaranteed. The fear of, say, starving to death if you lose your job just isn't there for most people.
And this quote just nails the irony, right? You see someone complaining online about losing the parent lottery, but they're typing it out on a smartphone that costs $1,000, probably from inside a comfortable, safe home. It's a critique of the system that's being made from a position of relative privilege.
And this brings us to what the author calls half-hearted comfort. Basically, it's a situation where your basic survival is so secure that you can start worrying about a different kind of inequality. It's not about surviving day to day. It's about the struggle to get ahead in an economy that's felt pretty stagnant for a long time.
Okay, so we've got these two ideas that seem to totally contradict each other. Oyagacha is an accurate critique, but it's also a childish complaint. So where does this all come to a head? Well, it happens in the pressure cooker of Japan's hyper-competitive education system.
This is it. This is where the lottery gets real. In that fierce, all-out battle to get into a good university, the scales can get tipped in a major way. All that abstract talk about luck and chance suddenly becomes a concrete, measurable reality. It stops being just about how smart you are and starts being about how many resources your family can stack on your side of the scale.
So what kind of equipment are we talking about for winning this lottery? Well, think of it like an academic arms race. You've got these expensive after-school cram schools called Juku. You've got private tutors, special exam prep materials, and maybe the biggest weapon of all, just having the freedom to study without ever having to worry about money or needing to work a part-time job. That's the kind of stuff money can buy.
And who's often the general in this whole education war? Well, that brings us to a really famous figure in Japan, the Kyoyuk Mama, which translates to education mom. It's this well-known and, pretty controversial stereotype of a mother who is just laser-focused on her kids' academic success, sometimes to an extreme.
Now, you'd think growing up with that kind of intense pressure would be awful. And it probably is, but the author throws in a really interesting curveball here. The theory goes that once these kids grow up, get a job, and see for themselves just how hard it is to make a living, they might actually look back and be grateful for all that parental pressure that pushed them to succeed.
Okay, so we've really dug into the Japanese side of things, but our source wants us to zoom out a bit. Because let's be real, this isn't just happening in Japan. So let's think about these questions in a more global way. So let's start with the big one. What's your gut reaction to the term Oyagacha? Do you see it as a really smart way to name a genuine problem, the fact that hard work doesn't always beat a bad starting hand? Or do you think it's more of a convenient excuse, a way for people to check out before they've even really tried?
Now take a second and think about where you live. Does this idea of a parent lottery make sense in your country? Because the connection between how much your parents make and where you end up in life, that's a global issue. How does it play out where you are, and how does it stack up to what we've just talked about in Japan?
And finally, let's talk about solutions. I mean, it's easy to point out problems, but what do we do about it? If you had a magic wand and could change one thing to make education fairer and give everyone a better shot at moving up in the world, in your country or anywhere, what would that one thing be?
In the end, the author leaves us with this really powerful thought. Oyagacha might sound a little childish, and yeah, it might come from a place of comfort. But if we just dismiss it, we're ignoring the very real anxiety an entire generation is feeling. The first step to fixing anything is to look past the slang and actually try to understand the serious reality behind it. We'd love to hear your honest opinions on this, so let us know.